Hello and welcome back to AC's Make and Repair. Well, it's been a while. I've been quite sick. I got some sort of flu and I was pretty ill there for a while. I'm not quite 100% over it yet, but I'm a lot better than what I was. Today we're going to be talking about brackets though. I've got around to doing the video and I'm going to show you some of the brackets that you can make. There's literally no end to the design of brackets you can make, and a lot of brackets are custom made to suit your project that you're doing. So I'm going to quickly show you some of the brackets I've made today just as a demonstration. I'm going to go quickly through how I just mark out a simple bracket, what I use to mark that bracket out, and some of the processes I go through to make that bracket. Okay, just before I go on any further, I'll just sort of explain some things about marking out. Now, you're going to need some things with curves. I've got some old things that I've had for years for curves. I've got this bit of Perspex, what you call plexiglass in America, I think you call it. It had the shape in it. I used it. It had three curves, so I cut it all up and I just use the curves as is now. Also, you can use these little drawing circle things to help guide. You can use a flexi curve type of setup like that. You can use plumbing fittings. You can use tin caps to get curves. Another thing I find helpful is for small radiuses is just some plain washers, flat washers, and they give you nice tight radiuses, and that marks out your curves, internal curves and external curves on your bracket. Now the other thing you will need is a square of some description. If you're going to run a notch in any shape and form, you want to make them square, those notches. And I try to make those notches equal to in drop and rise. So the going in and the rise, I try to make equal. And if I have another one at the bottom like this one here, I try to make it the same. So it's balanced, as you can see on that one. I'll just move out of the right so you can see that a bit clearer. So yeah, it's just one of those little things I found over the time. Now design wise, really that's entirely up to you. And I could have given you tons of pictures of what I think is great. I have some basic designs that I use myself, but a lot of it I just make up on the run. I have a look at the piece that I'm doing and I'll make it to suit what I'm doing. So, you know, like over the time I've done a little bit of a brackets here and that, and drawn a couple here on an old envelope we had. But so this is one I'm going to do, one of the ones that I'm going to do just for this tutorial, just to show you how I mark it. So what I'll do is I'll show you how I mark these out roughly. And I'll start with, say, the top curve here, because I want to do I don't know if you can see that well. There you go. I'm going to do something similar to that there on here. So the top radius I'm going to do like this. I'll mark it like that. So that goes right to the edge there. Yeah, some of that you can sand. I want to just center that radius, so you can do that. Now the belly of it, this part in the middle here, I'm going to use this tin lid, sort of like that. So there I go again. I'm going to belly that out. And then I'm going to come back in a scallop. So I can use that same tin lid, as you can see there. I'll just belly that a bit more. A lot of this is by eye as you do it. So that tin lid goes there like that. Again, balances out nice and uniform. Now, I can either curve that bottom part there. I could actually kick that out a bit more on that point, because this is more of a corbel type of bracket. So I might kick that out a little bit and then come back on a sharper angle. Now that sharper angle is just accomplished by ruling that across there. So I don't know if you can see that. There you go. Got a bit of shadowing going on there, I don't know why. I'll just zoom into that just so I can show you. There you go. Okay, now there's a couple of things you need to bear in mind when you do this at the start. This should be dead square on any bracket that you do, because if it's supporting a right angle shelf situation or supporting a beam of some sort, it should be dead square. Do that first. Mark your marks clear. If you're doing notches, make sure they're nice and square and equal on your piece. But as you can see, that is, just zoom that in. There you go. That's clear enough to follow. Now that one there's quite easy to cut, because I can cut in here, or I can come in here first, like that, follow it around to there, then I can come in from there to there to do that last part of the cut. Sorry about that, I didn't realise. So cut around there, that's the first cut that I'll do. I'll come in through here, cut in there, do the belly, and then I'll come up to the top and cut in to that point there. Make the stop cuts nice and clean, and then I can cut that piece off and I can sand that nice and neat. Of course, when you do brackets, you usually do more than one at a time, and it's important that the first one is nice and clean so I can use that as a template for the following ones. So I'll cut that out now, and look, it's fairly basic cutting. You can cut it out with a jigsaw. You could cut it out with a coping saw or a fret saw of some sort, or even a little scroll saw if it'll cut thick enough or deep enough. But you know, most of you guys out there and girls out there will have some sort of tooling to do it. Look, you can cut a lot with a jigsaw. Just take your time. I wouldn't suggest when you do your internal curves or your external curves that you have it on oscillating the reciprocating mode of your jigsaw, because when you do an internal curve, it will cut further in at the bottom than it will at the top, and when you do the external curve at the bottom, it'll be further out. So do not have it on reciprocating mode when you cut these curves. Always have your jigsaw blade up and down. You can cut these on a bandsaw. I'm using a pattern saw, which is an old style frame jigsaw. I've used it for years for cutting brackets, and it works really, really well. So I'll cut that out now, and I'll show you what it comes up like. So that's our cut bracket. I actually cut that out on the bandsaw because this is about a bit over 2 inches wide, this piece, and the little pattern saw doesn't handle really thick pieces, and the blade's getting a bit blunt on it too. I can do up to 65 millimeters on it, but the bandsaw, I've got a small bandsaw that cuts this stuff like butter, so I used it instead. All this timber that I'm using here today is scrap timber, is a fair bit of it's pellet wood. This is just 2 pieces of timber glued together to make that wide bracket. Yeah, for that one, I'm going to put a surround on it like that, and that will sit center of that block like that. So that will come up quite nice and actually be very good sport. It would be for something about 6 inches wide, so like a mantle shelf or something like that. Like I said, that's a corbel type of bracket, and that's quite good for that sort of thing. And there's another thicker one I'm going to do too, similar, out of that block of wood. It's about 3 inches square, so it's going to take a bit to do too, so I'll mark that in and do that. I'll show you all these at the end and explain some other things, but I just thought to throw these things out there for you to know how to do, and they can add goodness to a piece of furniture. Here's the design laid out clearly on the block of wood that I just showed you. And notice I'm putting my stop cuts in on these square notches first. So anywhere that I can cut into and put a nice clean stop cut, I do that first. And that avoids any problems later. You can just come right up against the shoulder and cut a nice neat corner. The neater you do your cuts, the less sanding you have to do, especially if it's a clear finish on a piece of timber. It's a natural timber finish. You need to be clean and no jagged cuts, which is a bit hard with a bandsaw or a jigsaw. or any saw as such. However, the more consistency and steadiness you have with your cuts, the more chance there will be of less sanding, etc. Now I've got a spindle sander that I can sand some of these internal curves with. Very grateful for that. But in a lot of cases, and I didn't have one of those for years, and so it meant a lot of hand sanding with profile sanding things, etc. And it took a lot of work. But it doesn't take a lot to cut one of these neatly. And if it's on a rustic design piece of furniture where it doesn't really matter if there's a little bit of saw mark, that's quite easy. Now if it's painted, you can sand it quite quickly, smooth it up with some sort of filler and putty sort of too, and you can actually have a nice neat edge if it's painted too. But on a natural timber finish, it takes a bit of time. So there you go, there was the process that I went through with cutting that. I cut the stops first, then I cut the curves last. I just thought I'd show you that other one I was cutting. This is on that old pattern saw, that old frame jigsaw I have. Used it for a terrible lot of brackets over the years. Does quite a good job, especially on pieces that are sort of 40 millimeters down or inch and a half down roughly. It works really, really well, and I find it I can cut a more consistent curve and neater curve on this old saw compared to a bandsaw. I find it's more user friendly. Okay, so here's the finished product. Now I state again, do your stop cuts nice and neat. Keep your flow going as you cut steady. Keep it consistent speed. The more consistency you have with cutting, etc., the neater the finish will be. Okay, so here we are, and I'm going to show you various styles of brackets. You can have them equal in size and shape, so you don't have to have them rectangular or oversized in any way like this, longer on one side than the other. You can have them square, you can have them cut straight, you can have them cut curved even, like I've done here. You can have them domed. Mate, there is so many configurations with brackets to do. Now you say, well, what's the uses for brackets in making the projects I make? Well, many of you would have seen old-time furniture that was made years ago with minimal hand tools, and a lot of times they use brackets on the bottom of cupboards. At the bottom, under the bottom drawer, they would run a, just pretend there was a shelf on the bottom of a cupboard, and this is your stile over this side. Now let's pretend that's a stile of the side of the cupboard. They would run a bracket to support the shelf or the bottom underneath the drawer sideways, but it also served as an ornamental piece to the front of the cupboard. Also, one of the most common uses for brackets is shelving. So you can have a bracket that holds a shelf like that up against the wall. Very cheap to make, a lot cheaper than a steel bracket. Now you say, well, how do I fasten something like this to the wall? Well, in this case, if you look carefully, these are keyholes. This is cut with a keyhole bit or T-slot bit, some people call them. You plunge it in with the router, and it's a T-shaped bit, and it'll cut a groove underneath. Now what you do then is, I'll just quickly get a screw and show you. So once you've got this ready to go on the wall, as you can see, them slots, there's your pan head screw with the head on it like that. You mark where the screws go on the wall in correspondence to the slots. So the distance from that point there to the top of that point there, and you leave the screw head out about that distance that you need to hole in the slot here. Then you push it over the screw head and slot it up, and it actually hooks. If you can see carefully, it actually hooks on the screw, and there's a timber at the back that supports it. Believe it or not, it does hold quite a bit of weight, especially on small brackets or small shelves that are hanging on walls. Ideal for that sort of thing. The screw's concealed, and if you remove it from the wall, you've only got a little screw hole to putty up to fix that problem. The other alternative is sometimes you can screw through the bottom of this part, and you might have to skew a screw through the top. So drill a screw on, say, a 30-degree angle through there, a fairly long screw, and screw it back to the stud that way. Very hard on a single leaf bracket like that. Other brackets, you can screw through the back of them. See the back of that there? You could put a hole there. You could screw through the back of them and through the bottom here if you need. Put a timber plug in it, and it's quite well to do that. As you can see, that's a bigger bracket. Quite expensive to buy brackets, believe it or not. If you go to buy a timber bracket, I was looking on a website earlier this morning just to get an idea what they were worth, and I was quite surprised. A simple bracket like that at one place that I was looking at was about $71. I could not believe it. And yet people must buy them for these places to keep going in business. And like I said, they're quite expensive. And then they had other ornate ones that were obviously CNC routed or laser cut, and they were lots cheaper. They were down to $14, some of them, and some of them were $24. That were a lot more ornate. So, like I said though, if you're doing 10 in a row, it can be quite expensive after a while in. So, a lot of times you might even have offcuts. All of these brackets I did today was out of old recycled pallet wood, just because I knew I was just doing demonstration for you guys out there on how to make them. Plain and simple brackets, little simple brackets that can either be fixed vertically, and you can actually screw, in this one here, you can screw through that part there and that part there, and they serve quite well. A lot of times you can put a belt rail or a piece of 2x1 or something between the back and screw it from the side, and then you can use that to screw off with your points too. Fasting is probably one of the most difficult parts with timber brackets, full stop. Different shapes, different designs, concaves and convexes, long, slender. This sort of style one works well, more in a vertical application. However, on the front of a cupboard, like I said before, you could have that below a shelf like that, and it comes up quite good. If you step it back a little bit, it actually gives it a bit of a shadow effect, which looks quite nice too. Look, there's different names for brackets. Some people call them corbel brackets. Some people call them gallows brackets. This is more of what they call a gallows bracket, and this is what they more call a corbel style of bracket. A lot of corbel brackets are machined or routed on this side. I just cut these out roughly with a bandsaw. If you look carefully, you could probably still see a few bandsaw marks. However, if that's getting painted, and I didn't go to much trouble sanding them after it finished, if that was getting painted, I'd give them a bit of a sand over, a good primer sealer for an undercoat, and they would work fine. But a bracket can actually make your job look really classy. You can make an ornate bracket that can really set your little piece that you've made, whether it be a stool, a little single-doored medicine cabinet with some fancy brackets on the bottom of it, a little pot stand with some brackets on it, four-legged pot stand with some brackets that actually act as support and bracing, as well as an ornate feature. You can put them in the corners like that. So they can really set a piece off from just being a dull, boring piece to a classy looking piece of furniture or an item that you've made just by putting a bracket on there. Through the video I will show just basic cutting out of some. What I will explain though is what I generally do. I'll explain how I cut this out. If I was to cut this out, I generally come in from the bottom, in from the side here first, cut this stop cut here. So I'll come in and put the stop cut in there, and then I'll come up and do that cut and take that piece out. Then I'll come in and cut that stop cut there, and then I'll cut that piece out. And vice versa, I'll cut up there and get that piece out. I do try to balance those out. I do say that through the video too. I do try to balance these steps out. That adds sort of a balance to it and looks equal. See how I've tried to balance those little notches out. Even the curves, if I can use the same radius, I do. In this case, I wanted a smaller curve there and a smaller curve there and a larger one there. Didn't work, but it still looks great. And as you see, you can combine convexes and concaves and even angles. You can actually put beads sometimes. There's so many designs. Look, if you're unsure what might suit your cupboard, go on to an image search and type in brackets, timber brackets, and look, literally you will get ideas by the thousands of different shapes for brackets, and you can add that class to your bits of furniture just by making a bracket. So there you go. I'll let you go through the rest of the video and hope you get enjoyment out of it. Thank you for joining me on that video today there. I hope it was a help to some people out there. Give you a little bit of an idea, but it certainly can set a piece of furniture off and add class to your little project. Glad you came along today. If you did like it, hit the thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed and you'd like to subscribe, please subscribe by all means. Till then, I'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.